with all that's going on in our country today, in our country, I should say, in the United States, as usual, there's going to be conspiracy theories. There's going to be news report. There's going to be social media musing, and then somewhere in between there is going to be the truth. I think that this thing is so high profile. It's really high profile, and so deep that regular people like myself can only sit back and with sensible and sober mind consider some possibilities. It's a big deal that for the first time in my lifetime, 66, 45 of it spent here in the U.S. First time in my lifetime, the USA is actually being shut down. It's interesting that now Donald Trump doesn't need his wall. You think, why did you need a wall in the first place? If you can shut the border down now without the wall, you could always have shut it down without the wall. But you and I really know how politics work. One of the things that's interesting to me about this whole coronavirus is, first of all, I can understand the U.S. and the numbers being low because of the lack of testing. And when you consider what testing does or don't do, any reasonable thinking person would surmise that testing is not an issue nor a factor. Because, first of all, if people were sick, even without testing, if people were sick from the coronavirus, they would be lined up in the hospitals and emergency centers and doctors' offices and so on and so forth. So if people were really sick, if there was an epidemic of sick people from corona in the United States, we would know this. And seeing that there wasn't this dramatic event taking place, then why is the United States being shut down? Why aren't kids in school? Why aren't churches holding services? Why aren't restaurants open, bars? Why aren't people, going to work so they can pay their bills and so on and so forth? I tell you one thing, at the end of the day, when all of the dust settles and things are back to its new normal, the rich is still going to be richer and the poor is still going to be poorer at the end of the day. I just thought I'd kind of address that before I do my other video, which is, more in line with the purpose of my videos. I think it's reasonable for me to kind of address this in the third in my series of musing about this coronavirus issue. seeing that it has adversely affect me. Usually on a Sunday morning at this time, I would be headed towards my nursing home ministry to hold service there. And of course, as you all probably know, the elderly are supposedly most susceptible to the ill effects or the most serious effects from this coronavirus deal. As a matter of fact, I just called them to kind of find out the status of how they're proceeding and how they're treating this. And I was told that they're pretty much abiding by the CDC and World Health Organization's mandates. The fact that this thing is worldwide tend to lead me to think that this is kind of a world, I don't know what the world organizations, I can't think of them right now, G5 or 7 or whatever they're called, and all those kind of things. I think it's kind of somehow I'm thinking it's a plan. Yeah, I tend to lean on the fact that it's a planned event. And as usual, we always blaming bats and monkeys. Supposedly something happened with a bat, droppings, whatever, the animal, and the typical story, right? And from the animal, it transmit to human and all this other foolishness. Yet it's a flu-like. It's just a variation of the flu. It's yeah. If I was going to pull off something like this is exactly what I would use. A virus like this, flu-like. It's not a shock to anybody that it's some kind of new flu. The nature of how it's transmitted, it's not transmitted through drinking water or that kind of stuff, person to person, so that we could, we would be able to do the things that we're doing right now. If it was something that was transmitting through drinking water, that would be like, oh no. You see, nobody could really, it would be harder, more difficult to would be more difficult to do the things that we're doing now. So it has to be something such as this. And we also have to say that, yeah, children are relatively safe, teenagers, young adults, yeah, this is ideal. If I was enemy of the United States, this would be the ideal weapon that I would use against them. Because unlike the rest of the world, the people in the U.S. are not used to their livelihood being taken away because we can't go to work, their pleasure being taken away, bars and restaurants and public places shut down. Yeah, our food, is being threatened. Struggling for food. This is perfect. It is perfect, and I think the enemies of the United States are just sitting back and seeing, that's how we can get them. We don't need bombs and guns. We do not need bombs and guns. We just need a little contagious disease. It's going to make them run to the lines and make them shut down businesses and get into this economic chaos. One of the things that comes out of this, I think, what impeachment couldn't do and all this other stuff couldn't do. I think that the Trump administration is they're going to lose this election. I also, just from standing back and watching all the time they've been in power, they really don't care about it. I think they've achieved what they wanted to do. Trump and his handlers and the big money behind him have achieved what they wanted to do. So they don't care about winning this election, because this is a death blow to the Trump administration, no matter how it comes out in the wash. Because first of all, plain thinking minds are going to say, so why weren't we prepared for this? And the chaos is indicating that we were not prepared. This thing started happening, way back in, some say way back in November. And the Trump administration didn't look and say, what if happened to us? Prepare our medical systems and so on and so forth for in the event that it happened to us. The Chinese are close together, physically close together, just because of sheer numbers. So wherever you go, it's going to be a crowd. We are close together because it's our culture to do clubbing and shopping and the things that we're being prevented from doing now. So I think the American people are not going to forget, no matter what happened, because you've stopped our worship, our pleasure, our food source. I mean, people's life, and people are not going to forget that come November. No matter how it come out in the wash, people are going to remember that I had to sit in my house, get bored. My kids were out of school, this and that, whatever. And the Trump administration was there. I would say that most people in America are thinking, especially when we look around, and I don't see anybody in my circle that's sick from coronavirus. I don't know anybody personally that's been, that has it, or, is sick from it. So it's not real to me. All it is, in the newscast. And also in my work, as an Uber driver, I see less people moving around. That's the only reality that I have about it. So in terms of it being serious enough that I should be on lockdown, I'm not feeling that. I'm not accepting that. Especially, like I said, as I drive around my city and I look and I'm seeing, and I see few people here and there that's doing their thing, like the suburban stores. They're looking at it different, but in the hood is just business as usual, and I don't see people falling over like flies, people dying, people getting sick, and so on and so forth. I believe that if our power that be were on the job as they should, they could have taken the numbers from China and look at our population, and they should be able to do the math and come up with a potential number and prepare our hospitals, our medical systems. If we need more hospital space, open up some that's been closed, get the Army Corps of Engineer to be prepared to erect some temporary tent structure or whatever structure they use when they're abroad at war. So we could have been prepared for that. The preparedness was not there. I think that, if you're going to do something like that or like this, then China would be the perfect place for it. If China loses, let's say, 400 million people die from the thing, that's like whatever. China's got over 1 billion and change left. So, for something like this, I think China would be the perfect place to start. Um, there's also the possibility that it's a biological attack on the U.S. By China. But it's that to me is probably the 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 biggest stretch. I again think it's more like a cooperation between all these world powers. Let's see. Um, it's a test run in case we were such an event really happened in the world. Um, do you notice you don't hear anything about Japan? I don't hear anything about Japan, and I'm pretty much I'm listening to live coverage of this thing all the day. The reason why Japan is so important is because it's an illness that attacked the elderly, and China, like Italy, has a significant, a higher percentage of elderly in their society. So the silence on them is deafening to me, which again supports my position that this is a deliberate action. Um, how could the U.S. benefit from going through this exercise? It's an opportunity for the U.S. for the first time in its history, to have a live practice run of how we could shut down the society in the case of a biological attack. So there's some benefits that's coming out of all of this. One is, I think, in regards to school from kindergarten to K-12, if they're able to efficiently remote educate kids, that would be a big plus for the power that be. All these school buildings, you could close them down. The expense, sell them off. And that would be money in the coffer of education. Um, of course, the inconvenience that it would cause, especially poor people, um, as usual, nobody cares about that, right? Because, mom working as a maid, or, working at McDonald's or whatever she's doing to make ends meet, she don't really have the time to supervise a kindergarten child. Although our kids nowadays, they're pretty smart. They're pretty smart and very good with the tablets and the technology, but they still will need some kind of supervision, some adult supervision. So its impact on the poor would be, especially the working poor, would be drastic. But as usual, that's just collateral damage. But if they can make this work, it would be a boon to the U.S. education system. Um, of course, we know college and university, they already use that stuff anyways. High school, from, I don't know, 10th grade, 9th grade up, they're familiar with this. They're comfortable with that. It would have some problems, but overall, I think it would be most positive. So here they have a chance to see if that could work. Would make education less costly for the power that be. Another plus for the U.S. from this is an answer to going a cashless society. People are locked in now. It's a lot of ordering, a lot of that kind of stuff. So there's no cash, changing hands. Most of what's going on now is done online, over the phone. It's using plastic. So we get an opportunity to see what we would look like, or to even institute a cashless society. Again, there's going to be some downsides. A little guy on the street, but then he can use his little square, with his phone. Everybody can use the square with the phone. So I can see how we could um, go there. Um, Another positive, another plus, um, especially here in H-Town, our traffic is getting crazy. With most people, with so many people working remote, um, and they're the ones that's mostly on the street, then we could ease our traffic congestion everywhere. LA, New York, um, Seattle, all Denver, all the major places, Chicago, where traffic is becoming a real major problem. If we can get the significant number of folks working remote, that's a big lift with that. Those are three things. I'm sure there are others, but those are three things that I can think of. And there are three very important things that could benefit the U.S. at the end of this um, lockdown. It's costing, and it's costing a lot of money, but we know that the way the U.S. typically deal with things is just to throw money at it. Another $1 trillion worth of debt doesn't affect our deficit because our deficit is such that it will never ever be repaid. So throw some money at it. That's another thing to be thought about. Like if they decided that they're going to pay people, give people $1,000, give everybody $1,000. Personally, $1,000 is $1,000. I mean, it's $1,000 gift, so we appreciate that. But in terms of thinking that, how that's going to impact our lives, yeah, for somebody working at McDonald's who's making minimum wage, that's going to be nice. For middle class couple, whose monthly expenses are $5,000-6,000, mortgage and all this other stuff. That's like whatever, you know. And one thing I do know, I don't think that the apartment people, the banks, the mortgage company, I don't think they're gonna just forgive us all a month. They're just gonna say, yeah, people, you don't have to pay your mortgage, you don't have to pay your car payment, you don't have to pay your apartment rental, your utilities, or anything for a month. The government is just going to cover that. I don't think that's ever going to really happen. Because these people are basing their the viability of their business on the income coming in. So even if like car companies, car financing people, they'll take your payment and put it at the back of the book, we call it, but you're still going to have to pay it. And so, for people like me, I'd rather just, be able to pay my bill now. I'd rather work so I can pay my bill than not work and wait for them to give me $1,000. $1,000, that's like a week for me. You know what I mean? So that's not even going to cover my rent. You know what I'm saying? So, $1,000 is still $1,000. I give you that, but don't think that that's going to change my life situation. And I think most people, the whole middle class, working class of folks, working middle class, minimum wage people might be a little bit different, but most of us would rather work. I'd rather my life wasn't interrupted and I'm just, moving along by my own strength, by the strength that God give. I'd rather that than go through this exercise because this only benefit the power that be. They're trying to say, well, public health is at risk. Like I said, if we had all these people infected with the thing and all these people were sick, they would be at the hospital. Yeah, they would be at the hospital, at the doctor's places, clinics, whatever. We would know. if we were being overrun by this, we would know. We would know already, you know. And them projecting doesn't make any difference. Projecting, knowing, you know, from the test doesn't make any difference. If this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen. You know, you can't say, well, let's say you lock up a family, right? Lock up a family, they're quarantined themselves, but one of the members has it. What's going to happen? You're going to have 5 people in that house with it. So even this quarantine is not really, you know, how, in order to say quarantine was the answer, they should have known how many infected people. They should have known that, okay, in every household, they should have known if anyone was infected or not. See, they didn't wait to ascertain that. They just say, hey, shut it down. That wasn't a good decision. It wasn't a smart decision. You know, I see people still congregating. I still congregate myself. I still play soccer. You know, on schedule, we still go out and play. Ain't none of us sick, ain't none of us dying. You know, so this shutting down the, you know, world soccer and shutting down La Liga and NBA and all that stuff. I mean, look, the NBA players who have that come out in media that such and such a one has it, we don't hear anything about them being in critical condition. As a matter of fact, what we hear is, you know, yeah, I've got it, but I'm fine. I'm good, man. Now I know I got it, you know. So this is a knee-jerk reaction. It's on the one hand when you look at it, and then on the other hand when you look at it being deliberate, you can see that it makes sense. If you look at this thing as being deliberate, it makes more sense than if you look at it like it's just an event that started in China and people come over here with the mess, or people go over there and bring it back and all this other stuff. That part of it make less sense than if you look at it from the perspective that this was deliberate. It's a planned thing. Everything that's going on is a part of a grander scheme. I think it makes more sense to any sensible thinking man. Don't get caught in a panic. You know, if you use the mind and the heart and the senses that God's given you, you'll be able to figure things out yourself. You know, just don't get caught up into the social media, the news media, the political apparatus, their spin on things. You have to think for yourself, because the bottom line is you have to look out for you and yours, your family, your children, your loved ones. It doesn't change that, you know, no matter what they say, because you notice, look around, ain't nobody bringing you any food, any this, that, or whatever. There are a few organizations that's trying to do some of that, but the bottom line is, for most of us, we're just in the place that we're at, and we realize that we're going to have to work ourselves out of it. You know, when the dust is all settled, it's still going to come down to you and yours and your responsibilities. You know, that's what I do with all this stuff. I just don't panic. You know, hurricane is coming. I don't panic. It's like, find me a safe spot and, you know, just hunker down. You know, and it's worked for me. You know, there's no way. You got to get out of town. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to do whatever. And next thing you know, you're getting stuck on the freeway when the storms hit. You know, some people always get stuck. Always get. Because when everybody started running and trying to get out of town, then the freeway is going to be jam-packed and end up nobody's moving. You know, trust God in all things, you know. The one thing we do know, that there is a God, there is a creator. You know, follow your scientists. Listen to all them scientist people, and, you know, you keep a sensible mind on what they have to say, and you listen and you follow, and you find out that the Bible goes beyond science. Science has a limitation. Science is limited by these people's so-called thinking and by their so-called equipment that they create. They're limited. They're limited by their technology. Science goes beyond, the Bible goes beyond science. We need to understand that. The scientist people are always coming at us and want clue and want proof, this and that. But we got to tell them, the Bible goes beyond science. Beyond. There's a place that science can't reach because science stopped at, the Big Bang. It stops at evolution. And these things are all speculative, because you weren't there. You don't know. I mean, the big, whatever, we know that God exists because we can see the limitations that man have. Man can't recreate any of the thing that God has created. Anything. They can't recreate anything in nature. They can't just start from their own scratch, not using anything that's already there, that's already created by the original creator. Man can't just create his own. We can take stuff from nature and we can do it live. We've done some great things with it, but that's telling us that somebody else had to create and provide these things. So there's at this point in time, there should be no question about the reality of God, the creator. There is a creator. We call him God, whatever name we put to it. But there is a creator. Put the sun and the moon and the stars in place. Make the sea have their range. It can't go any further than, it said that he set the bounds for the seas and put the sea creatures in place. He created them, and and the land creature and the domestic creature, the wild animals, lions, tigers, and bears, and then it says that finally he created the first man and the first woman. I don't know about you, but I can see. I remember with me and my ex, we came to this place with two, and from two we went to 7. And then from that 7, it branched out 6 more. And I see how this branch of humanity, which is unique to me and her, just like it's unique to every other couple, we all add this branch to the human tree, human family tree. And I see how it's going to multiply. My grandkids going to have theirs, and until if God so permits, eventually there will be thousands of people, probably millions of people who have come out of just this one branch of humanity, which is between me and my. See that and for every couple, it works that way. So we can see how the human family tree has multiplied to billion. So this process of one man, the first man and first woman, makes sense. It's nothing, complicated about that. Yes, it's possible, it's reasonable, it's simple to think that all of humanity came from that one couple. And then and we have to remember that there was Adam and Eve, and then there was the flood, and then out of the flood came Noah, his wife, and his 3 sons and their wives. And so today's human population has come from those 4 couples. See, so it's a simple thing. I think the only question that should be asked is, so God, how did you pull off the different ethnicity? Chinese, black people, white people. How God pull that off? If there was any question. But God, will take care of those who put their trust in him. Jesus said to Satan, "Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God." And yes, we mustn't put ourselves into unnecessary, dangerous position just to say, "God, yeah, do your thing." But it also means that we don't panic like the rest of the world, because God is still on the throne. We don't, we just don't get caught up into the wave of panic like the rest of the world. We just trust God. I still hear the silence of God as I pray, and I still see the Word of God in the Bible not changing. I see no new Bibles coming out with no new revelation. So Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. So we will continue to trust the Lord. Even in times like these. It's in times like these that we need to trust God more or most. When, every aspect of our lives seem to be threatened. Church is going on and this and whatever, but we don't need to. It's not a necessity that we gather, because we are those who truly follow Jesus Christ. We are the members. We are His church. Wherever we are, we're still a part of Jesus' church. And so, whether in a crowd or whether by ourselves, we still pray. We still thank the Lord for His grace and His kindness to us. And we keep on trusting. Bless up.